I want to welcome everybody to our 11th annual Lincoln Day dinner. This is a dinner, as you all know, that is sponsored by the townships that represent the Panhandle. I had to get that in for you, Senator. There's a Panhandle in Cook County, of Cook County, and the strongest group of Republicans, I believe, in the state of Illinois. Our theme this year is turning a blue state red. I have to be careful of that because the Democrats already put us in the red, but that's not what I'm talking about, not the balance sheet. I'm talking about turning the attitudes. I'm your MC today. I'm Ken Jochum. I'm a precinct captain from Wheeling Township, one of the townships that we have. I was invited to do this for two reasons, one of which I look so much like Dan Proft. And the second one, if you don't believe that, is I have a unique experience fighting the Speaker of the House. You were wondering how long it would take to mention Madigan, weren't you? Well, a lot of you people, especially the state reps here, have spent many, many years fighting Speaker Madigan. But I'll bet you I'm the only person in this room who intimidated him so much that he took the entire legislature to fire me. You see, I was a township collector, and it took the entire state legislature to vote collectors out. Now, when the Democrats decide to get rid of tax collectors, you know something's amiss, right? I'd like to, Tom Morrison and the rest of you got some work to do. I'd like to suggest that we begin, as we do all of our meetings, honoring our country. And the first way I'd like to honor our country is to ask all the veterans in the room to please stand. And let's show them our appreciation for their service. Thank you. And if you want to stay standing, we'll ask everybody else to stand as the Schaumburg Post of the American Legion posts colors for us. Gentlemen. Mark time, march. Detail, halt. Left, face. Prepare to post colors. Post. I'd like to ask all our veterans to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two. And now we would like to ask Ms. Annie Penner to come up and present our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Color guard. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Annie, thank you very much. You may be seated. Thank you, gentlemen, from the Schaumburg Post. Folks, I'd like you to look around for a minute before we start. We've got a very exciting program today. Senator Lankford is very excited. He and his wife are here to join us and to give us some wisdom and to increase our spirit accomplishing what we need to in this election year. We also, and I need to tell you this ahead of time, have a surprise today. We will very likely, we got confirmation just before the program started. We got confirmation that this will happen, but we don't know what time. We are going to be receiving a call from the White House, but we don't know what time. I guess when the president wants to call, he's going to get ready to call. So that's what we're going to be focused on, and we'll have that. A number of very, very exciting things going on. But look around the room if you could. This group of people is the largest group of unindicted politicians in Cook County. Look at them. It's true. But you know, that's not just a flippant comment. There's a reason for it, and the reason is we believe in principle, we believe in integrity, we believe in honesty, and a whole host of principles, many of whom I can't spell. Hopefully I can practice. But the point is we are different, and what we want to do in this election year is something very different. It's turning the state red, and that's our focus. Our goal, of course, is not just to change the balance sheet, it's to really do it. I'd like a show of hands. How many people have already been walking a precinct or will this coming Saturday? Because I know a bunch of them are doing it now. Okay, how many people have put up a yard sign for a candidate or done something for candidates of that nature? And how many people have volunteered already this cycle, either in an office or filling out something or doing something? Who's volunteered? Okay, that's the point, isn't it? We are the grassroots, and it's the things we do every single day that make a difference in these elections. Now, we can't introduce everybody, then there are a lot of people worthy of introduction and worthy of admiration in this room. But there are a few people we would like to mention, especially those running on the state level. I'd like to first of all just introduce Lieutenant Governor Evelyn Sanguinetti, who I think is here someplace. If you could just stand up, Lieutenant Governor. And our candidates both for treasurer and for comptroller, Darlene Sanger and Jim Dodge. Could you stand up, please? And there is also a candidate for Attorney General, Gary Grasso. And a candidate for Governor, Representative Jeannie Ives. Thank you, folks, for being here, because you are the wind in our sails, the wind in the sails of the grassroots people who are going to go out and walk tomorrow. And I know at least one township and maybe another where they're actually going to leave this meeting today, and tomorrow they're going to be walking. And the reason they're walking is because people like you are there with us at the polls, in the precincts, and at events like this, showing us you've got skin in the game, because we sure have skin in the game. I think as I see the people who are here, and I'm going to show them to you in a minute, you're going to be as impressed as I am at this group. And I hope you take the opportunity to network and meet lots of people. I'd like to have 3 groups of people stand up, please. First of all, and stay standing. First of all current office holders, please stand. Anybody who holds an office of some sort, elected office. Now stay standing. And now all candidates for an office. Anybody who's a candidate for an office, please stand. And any party official, please stand. Any party officials, please stand. Now look around at all of those folks. Can you folks commit to them this year? Can you commit that we're going to turn this state red? What? Can you commit? Look, Rahm Emanuel lives 5 miles away. Can you commit we're going to turn this state red? All right, that's the thing to do. And this is Mary Wroblewski's point. It's okay to sit down, folks. Sorry, Mary, I just have to use that line. It's so true. We have asked the next person to come and speak to us because he's an individual who has campaigned across this entire state. This individual has debated people in various campaigns across almost every nook and cranny of this state. This individual is a person who literally wrote the book on how to operate a precinct. In fact, if you go Google how to work a precinct, you're going to see what he wrote. He's going to be here to tell us about the campaign he's in right now, which is the campaign of his life, as a matter of fact. And it's a tough campaign, so we've asked him 2 things: to give us a campaign update and also to lead us in invocation, because that's what he does. So let's give a very warm welcome to probably the best president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting, but as you can imagine, it has been a busy day, a very busy day. But since all of you have taken time from your own busy day in order to visit with me here, it would not be proper for me to disappoint you. But what can I say? What can I say that would not disappoint you? Perhaps your expectations are a little too high, and it might be better for me just to remain silent. You know, I'd rather be thought a fool than to speak out and remove all possible doubt. But even so, I'll have to take my chances. It's not a time for silence or idle conversation or self-serving speculation. You know, back in my own childhood, back in Kentucky, back in the earliest days of being able to read, I got hold of a small book of the life of George Washington. No, I still remember all the accounts of the battlefields and struggles for the liberty of this country. I remember thinking then, even though I was still quite young, that there must have been something more than common that those men fought for so valiantly. Now that I am somewhat older, I'm exceedingly anxious for that thing for which they struggled. That's something that is more important than national independence. That's something that was held out as a great promise to all people of the world for all time to come. That this principle of liberty should be perpetuated. And I shall be happy indeed if I shall remain a humble servant in the hands of the Almighty and the accomplishment of this great task. You know, I've never professed an indifference for the honors of political station. Were I to do so now, I should only appear ridiculous and insincere. Yet I have not failed and will not now fail to remember that in this current election, there's a higher aim than the mere attainment of political office. In running for political office, all men declare to be for liberty. Yet in using that same word, they do not all mean the same thing. To some, the word liberty means that each man should do as he pleases, with himself and with the product of his labor. While for other men, that same word means that some men should do as they please with other men and the product of other men's labor. So here then are two, not only different but absolutely incompatible things, both of which are called by the same name, liberty. When the shepherd drives the wolf from the sheep's throat, to the sheep he is a liberator. But to the wolf, this same act defines the shepherd as a destroyer of all liberty. So it appears that the wolf and the sheep are not yet agreed upon the proper definition of that word, liberty. And that is precisely the same difference that exists today amongst us human creatures. And not just in the North and in the South, but also within the North, amongst those who profess to love liberty. Whatever the outcome of this particular election happens to be, I want you to know that I do not impugn the personal motives of anyone opposed to me. It gives me no satisfaction to triumph over anyone. Yet I do give thanks of any evidence of the people's resolution to stand by and support free government. If you, the people, remain true to yourselves and the Constitution, there's but little harm that can be done. In this election, I've never pretended that I was the best man in the country. But even so, I'll remind you in this connection of an old Dutch farmer who once remarked to a companion that it was not best to swap horses while in the midst of crossing a stream. And this stream we are crossing together, as you know, is wide and turbulent. The pilots of our western river steer from point to point, as they call it, setting the course of the boat no further than they can see. And that is all I propose to myself in solving the great problems that are set before me. For you see, I've never had a policy, a fixed and inflexible course. Instead, I have tried to do what was best each day, as each day comes. Though I claim not to have controlled events, but confess plainly that events have controlled me. Yet I have always believed in my heart that the declaration that all men are created equal is the great fundamental principle upon which all of our free institutions rest. And I can only say, as I have often before said, that it has always been a sentiment with me that all mankind should be free. So far as able, within my sphere, I have always acted as I believed right and just, and have done all I could for the good of mankind generally. And it has always been my intention to conduct the affairs of this administration so that if in the end, when I lay down the reins of power, if I have lost every other friend on earth, I shall at least still have one friend left. And that friend shall be down inside of me, at my very center. You know, I do not believe that I have ever had a serious political conviction that did not spring directly from the Declaration of Independence. Have that document as its source of firmest foundation. There seems to be something said in those words that demands liberty, not just to the people of this country, but holds out that promise of liberty to the entire world. Those words seem to promise that in due time, the weights and bondage of servitude should be lifted from the shoulders of all men, and that all should be given a fair and equal chance in the race of life. That is the principle which must always endure. That is the true basis of our enduring union. That is the basic principle for which so many men have fought and so many men have died. And I am not at all ashamed to confess that 25 years ago, right here in Illinois, I was a hired laborer, mauling rails, at work on a flatboat. Just what might happen to any poor man's son. And now I want everyone to have an opportunity that is equal to my own. You all have, through this free form of government in which we've engaged, an open field for the full exercise of your industry, enterprise, and intelligence. You all have equal privileges in the race of life. I beg you to remember this, not merely for my sake, but for your own sakes as well. And again, I must admonish you not to be turned from the stern purpose of defending your beloved country and its free institutions by any arguments urged by ambitious designing men, but instead, hold fast to this union. We can succeed only by concert. It's not a question, can any of us imagine better, but can we all do better? The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to this stormy present. Present occasion is piled high with difficulty. And we must rise with this occasion and meet its challenge. As our case is new, so we must be willing to think anew and act anew in order to preserve for all men that which is still the last best hope of earth. I have been driven to my knees many times by the overwhelming conviction that I had nowhere else to go. My own wisdom and that of all about me seemed insufficient for the day. Intelligence, patriotism, faith, and a firm reliance on Him who has never yet forsaken this favored land are still competent to adjust in the best way all our present difficulty. Let us bow our heads and pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. President. The servers will now be coming out, at least that was the plan, and asking you what entree you'd like to select. And you'll notice there's a menu on your place, and you have a choice between prime rib or lobster. Oh, wait a minute. Between the chicken or the fish. Feel free to make that selection. So they will be doing that right now. And just before we go further, feel free to eat as they bring out the soup. There are a couple of people we would just like to recognize. We have a couple of new associate groups that have been very helpful. The Northwest Side GOP Club, led by Matt Podgorski. They've been getting people in up to the last minute. Thanks, folks. It's great to have you. The Korean American Republican Organization, also here. I can't see with the lights. And we want to also thank you, the folks who are with us all the time. They come all the time from our neighboring Lake County, the Lake County Republicans. Now, those of you, Senator, you may not know this, but Cook County has a struggle with Republicans. In Lake County, it's always Christmas. There are more Republicans there than any place in the world, but we follow their leadership. They're great folks. Thank you very much. I also like to tell you that we have a large group of college young Republicans here tonight, and Matt Foldy, who's from the University of Chicago, is out there someplace. I can't see with the lights. But he helped us organize. We have people from the University of Chicago, from Northwestern, from DePaul, from Illinois State, and North Central. And I hope I didn't miss anybody else. We appreciate that you're here. We love that you're here. Come back again. And also, finally, the Chicago Young Republicans, who are a wealthy version of the college Young Republicans. So you college Republicans get to know some of these wealthy people. They're pretty good. The other person, it would not be a successful Republican event if Mark Weiermuller wasn't here. And he's here. So tonight, I want to see every Facebook account and Instagram account with a picture of Mark. So that's your challenge. Mark, get ready. They're coming. You'll notice on the screen as we start to eat, you'll notice our sponsors, corporate sponsors and others. We'll talk about them later. Hope you have a chance to enjoy the ad book and enjoy your meal, and we'll be back a little later with the senator. Committeeman of Hanover Township Republicans, who has been guiding the senator and his wife through the day in our event here. Mike Baumer is somebody who's been very active in Republican circles. He's a great guy, and he and his wife Katie have been putting a lot of work into this effort. So let's give a warm welcome to Mike Baumer.
Thanks, Ken. The check is in the mail. I'm not quite sure how I inherited this job, but I've really had a blast. I've gotten to spend the afternoon and most of this evening with James and Cindy Langford. It is truly amazing to meet a United States Senator and his wife, and you kind of expect that they're going to kind of hold themselves above everybody else. Not these two. They're two of us. And if any of you, I know a number of you have interacted with him, he is not shy. He is very comfortable striking up conversations with people he doesn't know. So those of you that have already interacted with him, get that feeling. He's very interested in what you think and wants to listen to you. You're also going to hear some good news tonight, so listen carefully. There is hope for Illinois. They're also very flexible, because I will tell you a short story that this event is planned to the second. To the second. We all knew that the senator was staying at the Marriott. Some of us thought it was at the Suites, and some of us was at the Marriott. We went to pick him up at the Suites. He was at the Marriott. He's down in the lobby saying, "I'm looking for you, I don't see you." But hey, we got connected and we got here. He's flexible. It is truly, it does my heart good to know. I wish he was representing Illinois. You know, we used to have conservative senators. It's very nice to have one with us. I'd love for you to stay and represent us, but then Oklahoma would really be upset. Without further ado, I give you someone that is going to give you a lot of great information. Listen carefully. Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma.
That's very kind of you. Thanks. Hey, y'all. So, have a seat. Come on, I haven't even said anything. It may not even be very good. Good evening. Can I say howdy in Illinois? Is that still legal? Okay. Great to be able to see everybody. It's really a joy to get a chance just to be able to be in the conversation. For all of you, as I looked around and saw all the candidates and the folks that are currently serving, it was interesting for me to be able to see all of that because I was elected in the United States Senate and I was finishing out a 2-year term from a special election, then re-elected again in 2016, which for all of you that know your election work, if I was re-elected in 2016, that means I'm watching the election in 2018. And man, it's a good feeling. So I wanted to be able to give just a piece of encouragement to all the candidates that are there. And for those of you that haven't served as a candidate before, and many of you in the room have in some level, let me just give you a glimpse. When you're serving as a candidate somewhere and you sense that sense of calling to be able to actually go do it, the first thing you think is, this is irrational. Because normal people don't go to total strangers and say, "Hi, my name is James, would you vote for me?" Because you anticipate their next response is, "I don't even know you." Okay? But actually what happens is about half the people go, "Yeah, okay, I will." And you're like, "What?" And so you start working through that process. The second thing is the number of people that you get the opportunity to be able to meet in the awkward moments of those meetings. Because again, you've got to be outspoken and get a chance to engage with someone. My wife and I remember distinctly a story when we were at an event. This was about 4 years ago. It was at a public library, and it happened to be the birthday of the library. And so we're at this big event, this big gathering, and so they had this giant birthday cake that was sitting out there. And as I walk in and I'm meeting people, I walk into one of the rooms, and there is a lady that's there. It's probably early 60s or so. She's there. She looks up and sees me and gets excited, which is a nice thing anytime that you're there. Any chance that they don't look at you with disdain. They look at you and was kind of excited for a moment. As I walked up to introduce myself to her, she's holding a big piece of birthday cake that she just took a bite out of. And so she sets it down on her plate to shake my hand, and then realizes she still has birthday cake on all 5 fingers because she was holding the whole thing. And so she licks each finger to cleanse it and then sticks her hand out. So I stick my hand out and shake her hand, and my wife and my daughters just melt away. I turn around, they were right behind me, and they're nowhere. That's the moment I'm supposed to go, and here's my wife, and she's not even the same zip code anymore. And I've never let them live it down. It's those moments on the campaign trail that you just get a chance to meet people and to be able to interact, that you realize who we really are as a nation, and the fun of getting a chance to be able to interact with people in the wonderful awkward moments in it. A quick story just about Oklahoma. How many of you have been to Oklahoma? Wonderful. We'll sing the song later in a minute. When you come to Oklahoma and you get a chance to meet a lot of great folks, but let me tell you a quick story for those of you that don't know Oklahoma. Many of you think of Oklahoma and you go dark red state. In fact, we have 77 counties in Oklahoma. All 77 counties have voted for the Republican candidate for president the last 3 elections in a row. Every single county. We're known as the reddest state. 10 years ago, if you came to Oklahoma, every statewide elected official was Democrat. Majority Democrats in the House, majority Democrats in the Senate. 10 years ago. There were folks that worked in Republican politics for decades, organizing, planning, meeting people, articulating an issue about how you get opportunity, how it's fair for every single person, how you honor the dignity of work and what people work and earn they get to keep. All these basic Republican principles of life and of honoring families, all the things that we believe in so passionately. Those things that people just talked about for the longest time. There are many Republicans that I've talked to that are in their 70s and 80s that can tell me that when they registered as a Republican in their county, they registered in their county and the Republican county book was like this big, 3 pages that would have the Republicans in their county. There are many Republicans that I've talked to, they're older Republicans that would say, when they went to register, they would say, we don't have Republicans in this county. We spray for Republicans in this county. Now, several decades later, 77 counties all voted Republican, last 3 presidential elections. I set that in front of you to say, some of you are thinking you're toiling away inside the coal mine and it's not making any difference. It does. As individuals awaken and look around and to say, is this really working? It's the same thing that happened in our state house, that our state government reached a point that everyone looked around and said, I've been voting for that my whole life, and it's not gotten any better. What else is the other option? And sometimes for the first time they turned around and said, now tell me what you think again. And we presented some ideas to them. Don't lose hope. Stay engaged. Because the work that you're doing really does make a tremendous difference. And if you won't lose hope in the task on it, you'll find some fruit in the days ahead. And it'll affect your children and your grandchildren. And it'll affect the nation. Because quite frankly, the nation needs Illinois to go red. Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can switch over here. Let's see if that's any better. Oh, you want me to start all over again? If you watch the media, you're typically in a bad mood all the time because they have certain obsessions. And so there's a fear that if I watch the media, I'm just going to get depressed to be able to go through things. I get that. So you lose hope. The accusations, the statements, the things that are out there, I want to be able to set some good things and some positive things that are happening. There's a running statement. Benjamin Netanyahu, Cindy and I have had the opportunity to be able to meet a couple times. He has a funny statement you might have heard before, and that is in the media in Israel, said if he were to get out and if he were to walk on water across the Galilee, the headline in the papers the next day would be, Netanyahu can't swim. He said, so he understands what bad media coverage is. We get it as well. But you keep living it out and you keep practicing those things and it continues to make a difference. There are some things like the tax reform that passed out last year that there's been a remarkable transition on. When that tax reform was passed, every media outlet was just pounding on it. One of my favorites, though, was CBS News, that they determined they were going to just pick 3 different families, and they're going to take those families when the tax reform bill passed, and they announced it out and said, we're going to take those 3 families, and we're going to show what their tax bill will be next year as well as last year. They asked them to turn over their tax records, and they ran it, and for all 3 families, unfortunately for CBS, their taxes were down the next time. And they had to figure out how to be able to cover that. because that was not their intention. The fun of it was conversations that I've had since then with my neighbor across the street who works for a very small company, who caught me at one point in the yard and he said, hey, our company's very, very small. We've looked at the change in our taxes. We're going to hire a salesperson. And for the first time ever, we're going to try to grow our company by adding a new salesperson. It was the person that called into our office, again from a small company, that said, we're buying a company truck. Now in Oklahoma, that's a big deal, okay? We're buying a company truck this year, and he was really excited about it. It's the conversation that I had with a college student 2 weeks ago, who said to me, who works a part-time job on campus, who said to me, I got my check. It's $7 more each time. And I said, are you paid monthly or every 2 weeks? He said, every 2 weeks. That means it's $14. What I thought was coming next was, okay, thanks so much for 14 bucks. What I got instead was, I'm gonna get to go to a movie. And it was bringing the whole thing down to a level that we lose track of. That for every individual, they understand what happens in savings. Whether you're saving for a big event or for something small and you get the opportunity to say, I get to go to a movie now. The tax rates have really made a tremendous difference. And there's been a lot of focus on the Apple computer and $38 billion moving in, or American Airlines giving every employee $1,000 and all those things. And those things are great. But there's a lot that's happening just with individuals all over the country. We're watching the economy, and if any of you saw the headlines today, to see the 4.1% unemployment rate and over 300,000 jobs that were created last month, which shocked every economist that the growth was that large last month. And we're not done. Last week we started on something called Dodd-Frank reform. Anyone here a big fan of Dodd-Frank? Yeah. So we started on it last week on Dodd-Frank reform. And it was amazing to be able to hear some of the conversation from people about Dodd-Frank and how precious they think are some of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and its nature and everything that it's trying to do and all the oppression that's in it. So I stood on the floor last week and I said, let me tell you what this Dodd-Frank reform means for us and for Oklahoma. Probably means for you. I'm sitting next to a gentleman when I'm flying out last Monday. He has a farm, a ranch actually, in north central Oklahoma that he moved into, about 250 acres. He moved into a few years ago. He couldn't get a mortgage for it because he's in a rural area and no bank would lend to him. And he was confused by it. He had enough money. In fact, he had money in savings even, but he couldn't get a mortgage for it. And I would say that's because of Dodd-Frank. He said, yeah, 10 years ago, I could have got a mortgage for that. I said, yeah, you could have. But now under Dodd-Frank, you can't, especially in rural areas all across the country. Getting a mortgage, starting a business, doing any of the things that were normal just a few years ago, now is either impossible or you need to drive into a big city to try to do that. Because small town banks, in fact in Oklahoma, 40% of the banks now no longer do home mortgages. They've walked away from that. That's not unique to Oklahoma, that's all over the country. And what we've watched is larger banks buy up smaller banks. Why is that? Because the smaller banks can no longer deal with the compliance. Probably most of you don't know where Allen, Oklahoma is. It's small, don't worry. 900 people in Allen, Oklahoma. But the one bank in Allen, Oklahoma has 14 employees total. And thanks to Dodd-Frank, they have 27,000 new regulations to figure out. 27,000 for those 14 employees. How do you think they're keeping up with those? That's why you watch the bigger banks buy up the smaller ones, because the smaller ones throw their hands up and say, I can't keep up with all this compliance. Dodd-Frank was designed for the benefit of the biggest banks. And the smallest banks are facing the consequences of it. So we asked a very simple question. For all those community banks and all those regional banks that are around the country, that they just want to make home loans, they just want to be able to sell products to their neighbors, the folks they go to church with, the folks that they live around, the folks that they grew up and went to high school with. For those folks, why can't we exempt them from those rules? Why can't we allow them to be a bank again and just to be able to take care of their neighbors. That's what this next week is all about. It's releasing the economy again in rural America. So whether it's tax reform for every American, whether it's reopening up rural America and community banks, by the way, in urban or rural areas, and allow them to be able to re-engage in competition again to be able to win out in the fight, why don't we let them go win it? I think America is a place we could provide that opportunity. Now, let me just drop a couple ideas to you. Now, some of you may know a little bit of my background. I have a little bit of an odd background for the Senate. I served as a youth pastor for 22 years before I went into Congress. Now, I've yet to ever run into anyone that says, if you want to be a United States Senator, you should probably be a youth pastor first. I've never met that person. But to tell you the truth, it's not a bad idea. Working with juveniles for so many years did prepare me well for what I would deal with in debate at times. This is not what my wife and I expected, though. We're like all of you. And we're like each other. There are times that we take elected officials and raise them onto a pedestal and assume that's a person that grew up in a family of elected officials, or assume that's a person that had a certain path or a certain background. We lose track of the fact that we are still a representative government. And if you want to get involved, go get involved. Doesn't matter your family background, doesn't matter your prosperity. Quite frankly, 4 years ago, when we were first considering the Senate, my wife and I sat down with my mom late on Christmas Eve, and we were sitting and visiting with her. The rest of the family had all gone to bed. And Cindy and I sat down with her, and we laid out, we feel like God's calling us to run for the Senate. Her very first comment was, "Oh, honey, the Senate's full of millionaires. What's somebody from a family like ours going to do there?" Listen, every one of you can be engaged in turning around a nation. Every one of your kids, everyone that you bump into. We're a nation that is determined to be a representative republic, that is determined to be able to provide freedom and opportunity for every single person. And so for those of you that are engaged in running for office, good for you. Thanks for getting involved, not just sitting on the sideline complaining, not just getting on social media and griping at somebody else, but actually getting in the game and getting to do it. Those of you that are volunteering, good for you. Thanks for not saying somebody should clean this up. Thanks for you being the one that's going to go clean this up. For those of you that are donating, for those of you that are participating, for those of you that are reposting, and that are being a part of shifting around a nation, thanks for not wishing it was different. Thanks for doing the work to actually make sure it actually turns around. One of my favorite stories is a biblical story. As you might guess, as a minister, some of my favorite stories come from Scripture. One of my favorite stories is a biblical story coming from Nehemiah. And if you know the book of Nehemiah, there's a remarkable story about a guy who's a slave, who's in captivity, who his brother Hanani comes from Jerusalem. Jerusalem's been destroyed 150 years before. The Israelites have been in captivity in Babylon for now 3 generations. In all likelihood, Nehemiah had never even been to Jerusalem. His brother, as a slave as well, Hanani, his brother goes with a group there, then comes back, and Nehemiah catches him. Nehemiah, all the same, right? Anyway, Nehemiah catches his brother Hanani as soon as he comes back, and he says to him, "What's it like in Jerusalem?" And Hanani says to him, "Oh, it's terrible. The walls have been burned, the city gates are down, they're destroyed completely, and the people are in disgrace." And then Hanani walks away. But the scripture says that Nehemiah was struck to the heart, and he prayed. And in fact, it said he prayed and fasted for 3 days. And then at the end of 3 days, he prays basically, "God, don't forget your promises to your people. Would you give me favor to go do the work?" And God does, and sends this slave cupbearer from Babylon back to Jerusalem and he walks around the walls of Jerusalem and he meets with the people that are there that are completely downtrodden. And he says, this is the plan. Everybody start working on the piece of the wall right in front of you. Whatever's next to your house, because literally the people of Jerusalem had lived with the broken wall around them for 150 years. Generation after generation after generation had grown up with the wall down for 150 years. And Nehemiah gets with them and he says, everybody starts working on the section of the wall right next to your house. And in 2 months, they repair the wall that had been down 150 years because everyone took the section right next to them. There are 2 things that I take from that. There's a lot more, but let me just give you 2 of them that I take from that. One is, there's 2 different people in this story, Hananiah and Nehemiah, brothers. Both of them heard about the exact same place. Things were devastated and things were bad. Hananiah hears the story and says, it's terrible, and walks away. Nehemiah says, it's terrible, I should go do something about it. I think in our nation, we have 2 groups of people. We have people that look at the devastation in our nation, morally, fiscally, relationally, and we say, it's not going great. And we have another group that says, yeah, we've got some problems. I ought to do something about that. My simple question is, are you more like Nehemiah or more like Hananiah? The second part of it was Nehemiah's basic statement. Take care of the section of the wall right next to your house. And let's see what happens. We again have a tendency to be able to look at the national issues. The first request is, what's going on right next to your house? In relationships, in people, whether it be school board, whether it be local office, whatever it may be. What can you do right next to your house? You see, we as Republicans have this crazy belief. We have this crazy belief that central government doesn't solve everything. We do believe there's a role for central government. There's a role for that. But it's not the solution for everything. We believe the solution starts first in our own families. And as we take care of our own families, we begin to turn around communities. Because I'm convinced government's getting bigger as families are collapsing. And as families are collapsing, we're seeing more crime, we're seeing more issues in schools, we're seeing people not prepared for the workplace, we're seeing more drug problems because families are struggling and collapsing. And government is starting more and more programs to try to help all these exposed kids, all these exposed moms, all these struggles in our society. And as government gets bigger and starts bigger programs to try to resolve the issue. And we as conservatives jump on the stack of government and try to make it smaller. That's not how it's going to be solved. It's not going to be just pressing down government. It's going to be lifting up families. Because as we turn around families, we can turn around the nation. And that's going to start by working on the area in your own house, in your own community. What does that look like in real life terms? Well, what that looks like in real life terms is things that are simple, like mentoring. There's an awful lot of families that have never had a role model. You could be that. There are an awful lot of folks that have just a little bit of time to be able to invest into a neighborhood. There's some kids in your neighborhood that probably drive you crazy. What if you were to mentor some of them? There's some struggles at the schools in your area. What if you were to give 1 hour every week or 1 hour every 2 weeks to go to a classroom and to be able to read to a kid that's struggling with reading? The same kid every week or every 2 weeks. I can assure you, if you stop by a school, into an elementary school, and said, I want to give an hour a week to be able to read with kids or 30 minutes to read with kids, that principal would not say, no, we're good, we're covered. They would say, here's how we can get you engaged and here's what we can do. They would love to be able to have your help. There are ways to be able to mentor families. There are ways to be able to mentor especially young couples to be able to figure out how can we actually help in the process. Because if we're going to turn around a nation, we as Republicans don't believe it's just have one more election and we elect somebody and that person out there fixes everything here. We believe it starts at home. You see, I firmly believe Washington doesn't change the country changes Washington, and the country is changed by families and churches and communities that actually get engaged. And it is our responsibility to take it on. I don't want to do the measurement at your house, but let me just say this to you. At my house, I did the measurement for this. My girls, Cindy and I, our girls, they're now 21 and 17. So they're a senior and a senior. And if you want to feel pity for us, here's your moment. We've got a senior in college and a senior in high school. They're graduating on the same day, 1,000 miles apart. See, there you go. There's your moment to feel sorry for us. So we're trying to figure it out. We've resolved it's easy. Just pick your favorite child, right? We'll get it all worked out. God's going to resolve all that. But growing up, I don't know what it was like in your house, but there seemed to be a tremendous distance between the sink and the dishwasher. Have you noticed that? All of the dirty dishes would end up in the sink. I actually took a measuring tape and measured. It's 30 inches from the sink to the dishwasher. It's 30 inches. Okay, it's not very far, but things are so much easier to put here than they are there, 30 inches away. Have you noticed that? Ladies, don't point to any guys in the room, okay? There is this tendency at times to say, that is easier, somebody else will do this, when the solution is 30 inches away than it is to do it. And we find that a lot in our communities. Somebody needs to do that. But it's somebody else. It's not me. It's Hanani or it's Nehemiah. Now, if I'm in a dinner like this, I'm probably in a room filled with Nehemiahs, with folks that actually want to be able to reach out and to be able to make that difference. It's who we are. But we cannot be drawn into, if I just send someone to Washington, D.C., they'll fix our community's problems. We do that. That's our job. And we take it on. It includes issues like race. It includes issues like poverty. It includes issues like education and community. That's who we are. That's what we do. May I remind you, when President Lincoln was up here earlier, the founder of our party was very focused on the issue of race and of equality. That has been the nature of our party from its very beginning. I started asking a question a couple of years ago of some friends in Oklahoma, and then I just expanded it out to just about everybody I met. I asked a very simple question. Has your family ever invited a family of another race to your home for dinner? Has your family ever invited a family of another race to your home for dinner? And I was surprised at the number of people that responded back to me, I have friends of another race. To which I would smile and say, that's not what I asked. I asked, has your family ever invited a family of another race to your home for dinner? I'm convinced the issues of race in America will not be solved with another piece of legislation. They'll be resolved in the hearts of individuals, and it starts with our families. It's who we are as Republicans. It's who we began with, and it's who we've always been. The Civil Rights Act of the 1960s were run by Republicans. It's who we've been, and it's been our passion to make sure we have equal opportunity for every single person. But for some reason, the issue of race is still an issue that we still deal with in America. So I've just put a very simple challenge out to people. I call it Solution Sundays. You can do this on whatever day is easier for you. But for a lot of Americans, Sunday's a little bit of a slower day, and so I just challenge to say, pick a Sunday, lunch or dinner, whatever it may be. Invite a family over of another race and just have dinner. No agenda, no list of questions to go through, no anything else, just another family so that your kids and their kids are sitting under the same table. I'm convinced that we'll never deal with all the issues and put them on the table until we get all of our feet under the same table, just to be able to have dialogue and conversation. And for folks that have said to me, I don't know who I would ask and who it would be natural enough for me to be able to ask, I will typically smile at them and say, then maybe you need to be deeper in your relationships with people of another race. Because maybe you've been friendly, but not friends. And maybe there's another level we can go. You see, I believe we as conservatives and Republicans can lead the way in some of the issues that need to be resolved, not with one more piece of a mandate, but with a heartfelt family connection to say this is who we are. If you want to see the point of reference to Lincoln in this, you don't have to look far to find the writings of Frederick Douglass and his deep friendship with Lincoln. And Frederick Douglass, even taking a president that was passionate about getting rid of slavery, and Frederick Douglass leaning into him and pushing him beyond just dealing with slavery and dealing with equality. Some remarkable stories about Frederick Douglass and Lincoln. Some pretty amazing things that still continue to be able to roll out. It's who we've always been. And I think it's who we can continue to lead. Let me make one more quick statement to us, then I want to close this down. Because there's some candidates that have got to get reloaded for tomorrow, and they still want to shake your hand before you leave today. For some reason, we as a culture are becoming more and more angry at everything. Martin Luther King Jr. was famous for making the statement, "Darkness does not drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate does not drive out hate, only love can do that." In our social media world, in the cable news and everything else, it seems to be if you find something you hate, then you try to double hate on it. You try to find something more angry to be able to say to someone who's angry. If we're going to turn that cycle around, we've got to figure out a way to be able to apply light to darkness, just not more darkness to darkness. So whether it's how we campaign or how we speak to people that we disagree with, I found it to be more productive to add light to darkness than darkness to darkness. And to be able to find a way to be able to both honor God and each other in what we do and what we say. It's not impossible. In fact, if we're going to change the culture, which we're called to do, we better set a good example in the process. Because our kids are watching. And I don't know if you've ever noticed, but with my kids, the things that I really don't like about myself at all, they do twice as much. For some reason, I've passed all of my bad DNA down to my kids and left out all the good. Just soak on that. Can darkness drive out darkness? Or does light need to drive out darkness? Can hate drive out more hate? Or do we need to apply love to that? Let's see what happens with us as a nation if we can set a different tone and drive truth to where there's darkness. I'm just asking the simple question. Hanani or Nehemiah? Which one do you want to be? Both of them saw the news. Both of them saw the problem. One walked away and said, somebody else should fix this. And the other one said, God help me. Somebody needs to do this, and I think it's me. That's us. That's you. And I am honored to be able to be connected to you as a fellow Republican as we work together to be able to help solve what we're doing as a nation. God bless y'all. Thanks for letting me join you for the evening.
Senator, thank you. You've left us with a great deal to think about. Thank you. We're going to proceed with the raffle, and I think everybody will. Hang on just a minute. No, we're not going to have the raffle. Engineer, we've got the White House calling. So hang on. I think we've got, did you see, are you getting the same thing I am? I can't operate my phone. We're okay? Okay, we'll see. We're supposed to be getting a call from the White House.
Ken, I'm here.
Hello? Hello, Mr. President?
Can everybody hear me there? First of all, can everybody hear me? What are you doing, President?
Are we having a connection problem, maybe?
Ken, can you hear me?
I can hear now.
How you doing, Illinois? First of all, I just wanted to say Illinois is a fantastic place. Chicago's a fantastic place. Been there many times. Have you guys noticed Trump Tower downtown? It's a great place. It's a wonderful place. And just wanted to say we need to make Illinois red again. We need to make Illinois great again. So first of all, just wanted to say I wish I could be there in person, but I'm getting ready to meet Rocket Man in North Korea. Perhaps you guys probably heard. I heard 6 township committeemen are retiring and new ones are coming on board over there. I wanted to thank you guys for your hard work. Wanted to thank one especially who's done great work in the Republican grassroots. Is Ruth O'Connell here tonight?
Yes, she is.
You know, in the last more than 12 years, Ruth has caused Wheeling Township Republicans to increase Republican registration by a higher percentage than any other township in Illinois. That's amazing. It really is. Ruth has been active in Republican politics for more than 27 years. I heard she used to be a young Republican herself. She's been responsible for getting so many people elected in the years of many of whom are sitting here tonight. Has built over 100 captains and many other volunteers who knock on doors, distribute literature, signs for all our candidates. I tell you, if we had a Ruth O'Connell in every county in America, we'd have supermajorities in Congress in every state. We could get a lot of stuff done. A lot of stuff done. Everybody, let's give Ruth a big round of applause. Come on. Can you imagine if we had that many Republicans in Congress, if we had supermajorities in every state, we wouldn't have to deal with these crazy Democrats, and boy, they're crazy, let me tell you. Ruth is an example of how we turn a blue state red. Ruth, thank you for all your good work for our country. I know you guys have some tough primaries coming up, very, very tough. But whatever the outcomes, we must come together afterwards and keep our eye on the goal of turning Illinois red again and turning Illinois great again. So everybody, I need you to do a lot of hard work out there. I need you to make Illinois red again. I know Chicago's a tough place. There's a lot of violence going on in Chicago right now. There's the cops have a tough job. By the way, let's give it up for our boys in blue real quick. Police officer came right up to me the other day, says, Mr. President, thanks to you, my wife thinks I'm an investment genius. My portfolio is up 39%. I said, only 39%, it should be a lot higher. But don't tell your wife that, that's okay. Anyway, thank you all. Turn Illinois red again, turn Illinois great again. And thanks for having me over tonight. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we'd like to thank one of our CYRs, John Giacaris, for bringing us President Trump. John, thank you very much. And now somebody who you all know and have been waiting for all night, Joe Felici, our chairman, to close out our evening.
I know you've all been waiting to hear my stirring remarks so you can get out of here. So I'm going to be very, very brief, but thank you, Ken. I hope you're enjoying our 11th annual Lincoln Day dinner. And it's gratifying to see so many of the same faces. A lot of you attended our very first dinner and have probably attended most of the other ones. This is the first time, though, that we're hitting a milestone, and that is that with this dinner, we have exceeded over $1 million in revenue over the 11-year period. And as a matter of fact, it's $1,085,000 over the last 11 years. And over those 11 years, we have returned over $750,000 to our local Republican organizations to help elect good, qualified, solid Republicans in our area. So thank you all very much for making this dinner and our past dinners very successful. You know, we've had some wonderful speakers over these years. We've had 4 United States senators. We've had 2 governors. We've had a former Speaker of the House. We've had the Chief of Staff for the President of the United States. And we've had the Deputy Chief of Staff for the President of the United States. Many of you have seen a lot of those people. And you know that a lot of them are up and coming. And our speaker tonight, I told many people, young, energetic guy, and we can probably see him on a national ticket maybe 10 years from now. So this is the part of the program where I'm supposed to thank a lot of people, and I will, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this very quickly. I'm going to ask that you hold your applause to the very end, because we all want to get out of here and see who wins all the money in the raffle. So I'm going to thank our committeemen. There are 9 host townships for this organization. We added Niles this year. So the committeemen, you can stand if you like. Dan Fitzgerald from Barrington Township, Art Nowodowski, Elk Grove Township, Mike Bomber, Hanover Township, Shar Frost, Egerman, Maine Township, Joe Hedrick, Niles Township, Peter Amarantos, Northfield Township, Aaron Del Mar, Palatine Township, Ryan Higgins, Schaumburg Township, and Ruth O'Connell, Wheeling Township. 6 of those 9 are all retiring this year, and we will have new committeemen in those races. And for good or bad, I'm going to be one of them. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So you can applaud them now. Then our dinner committee, I want to just highlight 4 people in particular, and then I'll mention our dinner committee itself, or the regular committee. Our executive committee, Kathy Penner, who was our co-chairman this year from Wheeling. She's going to be the new committeeman in Wheeling Township after the election next week, or in a week. Kathy Dolan-Bomber, she was our dinner media director from Hanover Township. She's responsible for the design and production of our program book. And she's also running for state representative in the 44th district, so we wish her a lot of luck. And Ken Jochum, who's been our MC, is our elected official and candidate liaison for the dinner, and he's from Wheeling Township. And Bob Vintage is our program book coordinator, and he's from Schaumburg Township. I should mention that the program book you have in front of you is the most successful program book that we've had. It beat our previous record slightly, but it did break it. So this is our most successful program book, and I encourage you to look through the book and use the vendors that advertise in our book and mention that you saw it in our book. It makes selling them ads again next year easy. Okay, other committee members, I'm just going to read their names. Linda Post from Barrington, Greg Wojciechowski, I know I slaughter it all the time, Elk Grove Township, Mark and Catherine Engus, Maine Township, Debbie Lemonitis, Palatine Township, Patty Lechner, Northfield Township, Ken Jochum, Wheeling Township, Mark Albers, Niles Township. So those, let's give them a clap. And so the money that's raised here is going to go a long way toward helping us elect Republicans to Congress in our area. and the Illinois General Assembly and in Cook County government. So we appreciate all of your support. So I said I would be brief, and I think that was. We're going to move on now to our mega raffle drawing, and Kathy, you want to come up? And Ruth, why don't you come and pick the winning tickets? We have 3 prizes. The first prize is $2,000, the second is $500, and the third is $250. Come on up. We're doing the $2,000 one first. Wheeling. Brad. It looks like Rush. It looks like Brad Rushton. We'll contact him. He's got a phone number on here. I will promise we will contact him. He won $2,000. Not bad, huh? Start lower. We should have done it the other way. Okay. All right. Oh, come on. You guys are wheeling. Give me a break. Joanne Panzer. Joanne, $500. Okay, the last one. I will say the folks in Wheeling sold the second most number of tickets, and of course Schaumburg sold the most, so that's it. Palatine, Kay Lang from Palatine. So, that's it. I think, Ken, we're going to finish off here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, and you'll be highly taxed for all of those. We're going to close out with probably one of the most talented people you've heard tonight, and that is Annie Penner, who has come all the way from Texas. I should have mentioned that at the beginning of the evening. She's going to close out for us with God Bless America. Annie, are you here? Did I see? Okay, she's on her way out. Let's thank her very much for coming all the way from Texas for us. Thank you.
While she's mentioning the Wire Apology Publication gather up there afterwards.
And also, could we ask all of the, come on up, Annie, could we ask all of the college Republicans to come up as soon as the song is finished, please? Thank you.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Annie, and thank everybody. Thank you, Senator Langford and Mrs. Langford, and thank you, everybody, for coming. We'll see you next year at the 12th annual. Ticket sales will start in about 2 weeks. Take care. Good night, everybody.